We are the Meltdown, and we're here with yet another retro trailer reaction. This series looking to reintroduce and put the spotlight on some notable movies from previous years. All of the choices featured within this series have been hand-selected by our Meltdown crew. Some of these selections include some of us completing first-time watches, and some include those timeless classics that we may have all seen numerous times. Join us throughout all of Season 1 for a look at the retro trailers and the discussions that follow. Today's entry is 1996's The Cable Guy, starring Jim Carrey and Matthew Broderick, and it is directed by Ben Stiller. First-time screenwriter Lou Holtz Jr. had the idea for The Cable Guy while working as a prosecutor in Los Angeles, declaring that he once saw a cable company employee in the hallway of his mother's apartment building and started thinking, what's he doing here so late? While doing press for Sonic, Jim Carrey spoke with Lad Bible and said the movie was one of his favorites that he ever worked on, saying, quote, "I have odd favorites that may not be for kids, but The Cable Guy is one of my favorite movies. I think Ben Stiller did an amazing job, and it's populated with the greatest comedy actors of our day when they were just coming into their power. I love that character. That character is all of us. We were all raised by the TV." Following the release of the film, Jim Carrey went on to win Favorite Movie Actor at the Kids' Choice Awards and Best Comic Performance and Best Villain at the MTV Movie Awards. When you look at the film's page on Letterboxd, the top user review from George F. simply states, quote, "Ben Stiller should have directed Joker." So with that, let me introduce our panel. I am Meltdown host Tim Melton. That is my co-host, Mr. John Lunsford.
Lou Holtz Jr., way better at coaching spring professional football.
Our producer is Tyler Johns.
What's up, everybody?
And finally, we introduce to you beloved Meltdown contributor, Rockstar, who you see daily on The Next Round.
I cannot remember the last time I used a shoehorn.
Fair analysis there. Rockstar, this film was your selection.
Really?
Why did you pick 1996's The Cable Guy, starring Jim Carrey and Matthew Broderick?
I don't have a specific reason when I was writing these down, but I was like, you know, it's a good movie. It was The Cable Guy, and it got a lot of hate because it was Jim Carrey's huge payday. I think it was the $20 million payday for right after Dumb and Dumber when he just absolutely blew up. And I thought that was such a, to describe it to somebody, it's really dark, it's funny, it's creepy, it's got a huge cast. And I was telling Tyler earlier, David Cross is in it, and I don't think he says one word. I think he just throws his hands up in the air at a board meeting. Bob Odenkirk's in it. It's just like he barely talks. It's just packed. Andy Dick's in it. Okay? It's just weird, but I thought it was such a great, dark movie. And I love how over-the-top Jim Carrey is, but I love Chip Douglas. I thought it was odd casting Matthew Broderick. I think he's the oddest cast member of the entire movie. I love the subplot with the trial of the Sam and what's their brother's name from Double Trouble that Ben Stiller does. I think he was Asian. I mean, that stuff, those kind of jokes, great.
This is coming off of what was a huge year for Jim Carrey, where he had Dumb and Dumber, he had Ace Ventura, he ended up having The Mask, and then a year after that he had Batman Forever, where he played the Riddler, and then coming into The Cable Guy, he was given that $20 million payday, which was a big storyline for sure, going into the marketing and press tour of this. Without any further hesitation, I'd like to go ahead and now get to the retro trailer for The Cable Guy.
Cable Guy!
Let's do this.
Slip the Cable Guy $50, he'll give you all the movie channels for free.
You're offering me a bribe. What you have just done is illegal. And in this state, if convicted, you could be fined up to $5,000 or spend 6 months in a correctional facility.
Oh, please, no, that was dumb. I was just making conversation.
I'm just jerking your chin. I'll juice you up.
For Stephen Kovacs.
Hey! You guys play here too? Cool.
The
trailer's so 90s.
Just went up.
Okay.
In a world.
You're on my team. Let's play.
No way. I'm on Steven's team.
Now,
We're not friends. I don't even know you. Well, let's fix that.
he's got a friend he can't control.
Where are we going? Only the finest restaurant in town.
Can I have your skin? Check this out. Silence of the lambs.
I just don't have any room in my life for a new friend.
So, what are you trying to say?
A friend who will not be ignored.
I give you free cable. The guy is a sociopath. He leaves messages on my machine night and day.
You there? Pick up. Pick up, pick up, pick up, pick up, pick up.
He shows up wherever I go. He won't leave me alone.
He's gonna need some tough love.
There's Stephen Kovacs in here.
I'm Stephen Kovacs. I didn't do anything. Just call my cable guy.
Police look into it. Nobody named Chip Douglas works for the cable company.
Suspicious, isn't it?
You're all being fooled by him. He's a lunatic and he's a felon. Don't mess with me.
Come back here so that I may bring thee! I'm here for you!
Don't do that. You're gonna get me killed.
Oh, Billy!
Jim Carrey, Matthew Broderick, the Cable Guy.
Okay, I'm going! Take off!
So there we have it. There's the trailer for The Cable Guy. From this point on, we'll be including spoilers in our discussion point. So if you'd like to watch the movie first, go ahead and do that and come back to us. As we saw there in parts of the trailer, oddball cable installer Chip attempts to strike up a friendship with customer Steven by giving him premium channels at no cost. When Steven rebuffs Chip's frequent need for companionship, Chip goes from a mildly eccentric acquaintance to a full-fledged psycho stalker, though it's increasingly apparent to Steven that the cable guy is dangerous. Convincing his friends, family, and the authorities of that is another matter entirely. So, John, I know you love Larry, the cable guy.
I do.
But what is your take on Jim Carrey in The Cable Guy?
Jim Carrey, to me, is at his best when he's not over the top voices, acting, trying to be funny. He's
Number
at his
23.
best when he's not that. He's at his best in a movie
Majestic.
like Liar Liar.
I love The Majestic.
Liar,
You back
Liar.
off The Majestic.
Liar Liar is my favorite Jim Carrey movie because at equal times lawyer, like normal lawyer, equal times normal dad, and then also some craziness every now and then when he needs to be crazy to move the story along or to make funny, whatever. Bruce Almighty, I'd say, is the same way. Like he's straight, but then can play Jim Carrey also.
When he's more grounded and less zany, that's your perfect Jim Carrey.
Because he's still funny in those too. It's not like he has to go full cable guy like he is here or Ace Ventura or something like that, like where he's so over the top. I know he does a lot of that, and that takes out like 80% of his filmography if I say I don't like that. But this is, premium that with the lisp and his over the top, bending over backwards constantly, going crazy. That it's just, that Jim Carrey is just a little much for me. And look, I like Ace Ventura for the most part. I still like a lot of those movies, but it's just a little much for me. And I mean, Matthew Broderick is the exact opposite of that. And for me, Matthew Broderick is like, you think Ferris Bueller to me, that's like the first thing I think of. But he's so confident in that and so not confident in this. And I feel like he actually plays less confident more. Just people remember something like Ferris Bueller more often. But like the producers, he's more of the less confident one too. I feel like he plays that role a little better. But then versus Jim Carrey, it's so different that, yeah, it works at times. But at other times, it's like, it just, I don't know. It's a little too much for me. And the movie's fine. The movie's not bad. The movie's not, one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It's better than a lot we've watched in this franchise, in this series so far. But, my wife's obsessed with it, so that probably makes it a little worse because she makes me watch it all the time, and it's just kind of whatever to me.
Okay. Eventually we'll get to a movie that John has some level of greater appreciation for.
Oh, brother, where art thou?
That's not mine, yeah, because mine are all 5 out of 5s.
Tyler, what are some of the elements that you liked and disliked about The Cable Guy?
So this was my first time watching The Cable Guy. I like when Jim Carrey is doing the extremely zany, wacky, over-the-top humor. I love Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura, and I had never seen this before, but this was great. He bordered between just kind of eccentric neighbor, stranger you might meet every once in a while, to just completely unhinged. and he did it so well. And there are all these little moments in the movies that I have heard around the office, because I'm pretty sure I've heard Rockstar act out entire scenes from this movie.
So, what are you trying to say? I don't want to be your friend.
I do feel like I was watching Rockstar.
Thanks. Wow. Jeez.
I don't know where this is
I didn't say I was watching Sean. I was watching Rockstar.
Okay. Big difference.
Tyler, is there anything you disliked about the movie?
Tonally, it was very weird, because it would go between like almost a rom-com where Jim Carrey's trying to get back, or not Jim Carrey, but Matthew Broderick's trying to get back with his girl, and there's this weird cable guy who keeps interrupting, and then psychological thriller where Jim Carrey's cable guy is completely unhinged, completely psychotic, and will probably kill Matthew Broderick.
And wear his skin based on the Hannibal Lecter
Oh, yeah.
impression.
And Matthew, you can tell Matthew Broderick couldn't hold it in. He was his character. He broke character on that. We got to keep this one because we can't.
I'm glad they kept it.
Yeah,
though.
I mean, he could not stop laughing.
Let me get into some of the things I liked and disliked. I think this is an incredibly well-made movie from a technical perspective. I think Ben Stiller directs the hell out of this movie. Some of the shots, some
so
of
dark.
the movements of the camera, some of the ways that scenes are set. I believe that Ben Stiller is a fantastic director, and he does an incredible job behind the camera on this for sure. I really like the basketball scene.
Yep.
I like the glass shattering, which I read up on, and there was a stunt performer who was doing that, and it was a mishap to where the glass wasn't supposed to shatter the way it did all over him and everything. And they kept it in the movie, but it wasn't necessarily supposed to pour over him the way that it did on film. It's a tremendous shot, though, and I think hearing all the reports I heard about, Jim Carrey had no basketball ability whatsoever. He had to have like an instructor on set.
I'm on Steven's team.
He had to have a basketball coordinator on set teaching him just the basics of how to dribble or do anything. But it works for the character.
Yeah.
Because the character's willing to do anything
For his buddy.
to try to bond. So it works there. And jumping over Jack Black. I mean, it's very funny. The amount of talent that rounds out the cast, including Jack Black, Owen Wilson, Andy Dick, Eric Roberts, David Cross. I mean, I could go on and on and on. For me, the standout, though, is the utensils and Pepsi exchange with Janine Garofalo.
That was great.
Where Matthew Broderick is trying to do something that I would probably do in that situation, which is try to argue with logic.
Yeah.
Can I get some utensils? It's set here in medieval times. They didn't have utensils. Would you like a refill on Pepsi? It's like, oh, so they had Pepsi back in medieval times? Like, I would probably say the same
I got a lot of
exact thing.
tables. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Like, can you just please shut up and, leave me a tip?
My thanks to thee, my fair wench.
Seeing other Carrey roles come out in this performance. Now, this performance happened before something like The Grinch. But when I'm watching him perform outside of the door of the apartment, I am seeing the same movement that I saw in The Grinch. And I saw The Grinch before I saw The Cable Guy. So I loved that it kept bringing me back to other roles. Even the Riddler, some of the same physicality. I loved seeing that. Lloyd Christmas, I saw some Lloyd Christmas in there. Basically, this is every Jim Carrey over-the-top character that's ever been put into one guy. And so I like that. In the film, we see the ongoing story of the murder trial of Stan Sweet.
Stan.
A person who is alleged to have murdered his identical twin brother, Sam Sweet. This is sort of a play on the Menendez brothers and also the fascination that America had with like the O.J. Simpson trial and all of this.
That's what I thought when the power went out. I was like, imagine if this happened during O.J.
Exactly. And it really is timely, I think, with a lot of those high-profile court cases we saw. The identical twins, both played by Ben Stiller, who also directed the film itself, and the 911 audio played in the court is really funny. It's just so over-the-top, funny. And when I watched the film, I went, that scene is probably one of the major reasons that Rockstar fell in love with this.
Oh, yeah. I think he was Asian. He sounded Asian.
And that scene, or all the Ben Stiller stuff in the background.
He throws his glasses down.
Kind of the background of building the trial before the cable goes out. That's where I look at a movie like Tropic Thunder and the random stuff outside of the main story, like the trailers they show at the beginning and all. Like, that's where Ben Stiller found motivation for something like that.
Ben Stiller loves that style of comedy. He also
Yes.
loves the style of comedy where there's only one sane person in a setting and everyone else is treating him as if he's the insane person. That's a trope you see throughout Ben Stiller's comedy film history, either on screen or behind the camera. One of the things I love most, though, is the sequel to this movie. Jim Carrey returned as the cable guy on February 13th of 2022 during a Verizon Super Bowl ad.
Oh, wow.
And it's a minute and a half. You got to watch it, Rockstar, if you haven't watched it already.
I can't believe I've never even...
You've never seen it?
No.
It's a brilliant advertisement that aired during the Super Bowl of that year. And Ben Stiller was asked on the Howard Stern show whether or not he had any sort of consultation in that. And he's like, no. He said he was surprised to see it, that Jim had texted him saying the character's coming back, and that Ben really liked the ad. So check out that advertisement. It was a Verizon ad, and it was really, really well done. Things I wasn't wild about with this movie. A lot of tonal shifts. You got to be on board for you're going to go a complete 180 all the time. You can never get comfortable in this movie because every time you think it's one thing, it turns out to be something else. Constantly trying to subvert tonal expectations. The constant sense of dread in the movie, like you always feel like something horrible is about to happen. And I don't necessarily love movies like that are supposed to be lighter in nature. Obviously, in horror movies, it's a whole different sort of agreement. But in lighter comedy, romantic comedy, friendship comedies, that constant sense of dread is something.
When he has
that's
that
pretty
nightmare,
jarring.
and it's like, oh, this could go dark if you
Oh,
really
my
wanted
God.
it to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the eyes that he had in that nightmare sequence also
Yeah.
reminded me of the Grinch. The lisp, don't love it. It gets kind of a. It
It goes over the top,
yeah.
but I know a guy that's a speech therapist. Why would you say that?
Yeah, exactly.
Why would
Then
any
he gives him the
speech-
lisp tape, and he's like, oh my God, this is the nicest thing anybody's ever done. It's like, you totally shot it down when he mentioned it before.
Yeah. There wasn't enough memorable one-liners for me personally in this film. I think the more I hang out with you, Rockstar, the more I will start to go, okay, that's great. I even heard John reference one the other day. Said, "Okay, we're playing by prison rules."
Yeah.
And he said that the other day, and I was like, John is starting to like a little bit of the cable guy.
Hold on, don't want to pull a hammy. That's that back and forth shuttle, like just the suicides. Oh my God! And the voicemail scene. It's one of the funniest things where he just keeps giving him voicemails, and like, I was in the shower, thought the phone rang. Want to talk about it? Call me. And then the last one, he curses, but he realizes that, oh my God, I've sent like 50 of these voicemails. And Matthew Broderick just like listened to each one. Those scenes were so funny, but you can't do them now.
One scene I didn't love that everyone seems to love, and so I'm definitely in the minority here, is the naughty password scene. It didn't do anything for me.
I didn't like that one either, Tim.
I thought it was funny. It should have only been 2 passwords.
Way too long.
It was 2 I think they did 3 or 4, and it should have been 2. The dinner table scene with him when he's kissing, like just telling stories about how Goodfellas was made.
I worry about future generations enjoying this movie because I think it is so dependent on the technology of the time. And I feel like answering machines, beepers,
Cable.
sound systems that...
Who uses cable anymore?
Cable, I mean the cable's
when
being phased
the
out.
scene when he searches for the right spot for the cable is super uncomfortable. Like, where do you want it? Tell me where you want it.
That is the whole premise for the Verizon ad, which I think is really clever. I hope you see it. So, Rockstar, with it being your choice, I want to give you the final word on the impact of this film, your likes, your dislikes. Is there anything you just passionately disagree with that's been said so far in this retro trailer reaction?
Another thing that's not mentioned, this was the peak of soundtracks for movies, and this soundtrack, I think I've had it pulled. They don't have it on Spotify for some reason, but somebody made a playlist just to...
Jane's Addiction was on there.
Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains said a great song called Leave Me Alone. Standing outside a broken phone booth. I've been down a holiday. Blind by Silverchair. Hey Man, Nice Shot. More Human Than Human. American Woman. It was just great music that was put on a soundtrack. The American Woman soundtrack. That scene was uncomfortable. And the prostitute scene. Don't worry, she's clean. I had her checked out last week. I mean, just stuff like just random. She was a prostitute? You think she would hang out with us if she wasn't? That's just so... Yeah, dislikes, I don't like the shift between, like, that last scene where he's, like, yelling at the helicopter telling Mom to stop and all that stuff. Mom, you're... Like, just like, what just happened? Like, we just took a total turn. That kind of stuff. I just wish it was either a straight comedy or a dark movie with a little bit of comedy in it.
Originally, he was supposed to die at the end of the movie. He was supposed to fall right through the...
I thought he did die.
Jim Carrey?
Yeah.
No, he got helicoptered out.
yeah,
and best friends.
He,
with
he missed the
helicopter.
spike on the satellite, but like that much, and it kind of pans out, and it's like, oh, it actually didn't stab him.
Yeah. Originally, he was supposed to fall right through that spike, so they kind of changed that up. But they had a tough balance on set. They would film a lighter side of a scene and then a darker side of a scene, and then try to piece together in post. And you could feel that was the process they were working.
Well, another
with.
thing that people get so annoyed with working Jim Carrey, he's one of these ones where I'm going to do this 100 times. This take 100 times until I think I got it. And it's just like, because they do it in Liar Liar, the blooper reel, where it's just nonstop. Take it again, take it again, take it again.
I would hate to be a production person on these movies.
Let's talk about the production. The role of the Cable Guy was originally sold with Chris Farley attached to star as the Cable Guy.
I'm in.
Yeah, I would have been into.
He later dropped out due to scheduling difficulties. Adam Sandler was also considered for the role of the Cable Guy.
The Candle Guy. That's all I got.
I didn't know if that was Adam Sandler or Tony Soprano that you were doing.
It's little Jay Leno in there
situation. Do you want cable or not? It would be my buddy.
Jim Carrey joined the production, receiving a then record $20 million to star. You would talk about some of the feedback he got from other Hollywood A-listers that would say, thank you so much for opening up this window, because if they pay you more, they have to pay me more. So it was a big deal. Following Carrey's signing, Columbia Pictures hired Judd Apatow to produce. The studio rebuffed Apatow's interest in directing, but accepted his suggestion to invite Ben Stiller on, whose Ben Stiller show Apatow had worked. Stiller was considered to play the Steven character before it was offered to Matthew Broderick. It does feel like that would have been,
I think that would have been good.
a perfect Ben Stiller vehicle to play that straight man role.
I like plenty of things Ben Stiller has done. I probably would have liked it better if Judd Apatow had directed it and Ben Stiller had been that role.
Yeah.
That's what was wanted, but the studio wanted a more surefire hit. And
he was coming off Godzilla, wasn't he?
no, Godzilla was a couple years later.
98.
But it opened up the window for Matthew Broderick to take on more roles, including something like Godzilla. It kind of brought him back, this film did, to being in people's minds. The film grossed $19.8 million on its opening weekend, ranking number one ahead of The Rock. At the time, it had the highest opening weekend for a Ben Stiller film, holding this record until the year 2000 when Meet the Parents surpassed it. In week 2, however, word of mouth sunk the film. Once people figured out what it was, The Cable Guy fell from first to fourth in its second weekend with a 49% drop. It dropped then another 60% in week 3 and then was out of the top 10 altogether by week 5. This is a film that it opened up number one, but it did not hold. And a lot of that opening up at number one should be given full credit to Jim Carrey and what he did to sell the movie at that point. It grossed a total of $60.2 million in the North American domestic market and then $42.5 million outside the United States, making a total of $102.8 million worldwide. But since it failed to reach domestic projected numbers Jim Carrey brought to his previous movies, Rockstar, this film was always considered to have underperformed. But it only cost $47 million to make. Marketing costs weren't nearly as extreme back then as they are now.
Half of the budget was Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey has said on camera, this is a movie that made money. It's looked at as a failure because when you are at the heights in which he is at that point, as the biggest star on the planet, there are very few actors who can have that claim to fame. He was that at that point, and it only made a little over $100 million. It's looked at as a massive failure, even though it was profitable at the end of the day. Apatow said, quote, people looked at it as a failure because it didn't make even more money. You don't consider this movie to be a failure, though, do you, Rockstar?
No, it's hard to market a movie like this, especially him coming off Dumb and Dumber. You're going to have him being a zany character, but there's by the way, there's going to be a lot of drama. It's going to be really dark. I don't know how you promote, like who's your demographic for this movie, because the kids that have seen Ace Ventura and Dumb and Dumber go into this and be like, there's some parts that I'd be scared to death if I was a kid. The nightmare scene, him falling into the satellite scene. So I don't know who the demographic was promoted to, because I know I saw it in 96. I was, 14? When I saw it, I loved it. I remember, like, my sister, I think I went with my sister and my mom. They both hated it. And I was like, this was great. So
14-year-old boys was the answer of who it was.
No, because I don't think I had any friends that liked it.
Oh, okay.
And then, like, I think once it came on VHS, people started like, well, there's some funny lines in here and stuff like that. But like, I think that's why it sunk for like after the first week, is everybody's like, nobody like it. It's not a Jim Carrey movie. He's just wacky, but it's like almost he's a killer.
I watched a behind-the-scenes documentary on the making of this movie, and Ben Stiller had talked about how there was legitimate heat from the cable companies, thinking that it would hurt their businesses by
I think Reputation
portraying
does
some
that.
sort of psycho as being the cable guy. So that's what you need to know about the cable guy. Is this a movie you appreciate all these years later? Have you seen that 2022 Verizon advertisement? We'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the comment section below, and make sure you take a look at our title sponsor, John, that is MyBookie.
MyBookie.ag, promo code next round. And see it right there in the corner. Go play in the sports book, play in the casino, play the live casino with real dealers there. Love playing blackjack with real dealers, real cards, and you can make money there. MyBookie.ag, promo code next round. First deposit bonus on us.
The Cable Guy, our latest retro trailer reaction. We have so many different types of movies that have made up season 1. We hope you check them all out, and we hope you're enjoying this series as much as we are. More retro trailer reactions as we continue on with season 1 right here on The Meltdown.